Jonathan's not.
Computer's not.
It's not working.
Oh. Well, you could have just said there's a button on the side, so you didn't have to come over here.
Sometimes it's easier just to do that. Okay. So our goal is for this agenda item, Ermatinger, if we could do it in 15 minutes, would be great.
Okay, so is everybody logged in?
Yeah.
Okay, we're ready.
So we can go ahead and start. We're going to start our work session at 6:10 p.m. So if we could have a roll call.
Sure. Jonathan Stone,
Here.
Cindy Toll,
Here.
Bob Seward,
Here.
Chair McLaughlin,
Here.
and Derek Metzen is not here.
Not here. So then we're on to item two.
Yeah.
The Ermatinger House Construction Update, PC 14-079.
Thank you, Chair McLaughlin. There's really two goals for the presentation tonight. One is to look for Historic Review Board concurrence that the three exterior alterations that are involved in this project that go beyond maintenance repair are concurrence that they are a staff level approval, and I'll go through those three. And the other one is to hear the update of where we are in the construction project from our Community Service Director, Scott Archer. And so when we finish kind of the presentation question and answer, and I should talk about the three exterior alterations, which are the ADA ramp, the stairs to the basement, and the foundation, which traditionally have always been allowed to not to go through a staff approval and not been required to have a formal Historic Review Board application. So I'm looking at concurrence that you agree with that. If you do not, then while this process is going, we would have to bring it back through a full land use hearing.
Can I back up just a second? When's the other person coming in for the library? What time?
Probably about 6:30.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So there's two parts. One, I'll talk a little bit. I'll move this to Scott, and then he'll speak a little bit about the process, and we'll come back and I'll explain those three projects, which are the exterior to the house, which is really the only thing that the Historic Review Board has authority over, which is exterior alterations that go beyond maintenance and repair.
Okay. Well, good evening. Again, I'm Scott Archer, the city's Community Services Director, and in my department is mainly the parks, recreation, and historic facilities for the city, and of course included in that is the operation of the Ermatinger House. So we are just to kind of give you an update on process before you get into the more technical items. The restoration project has actually begun as of this past week. If you've been by the house, you've seen some activity over there. Excuse me. And I was just going to kind of give you a quick background on that and a little bit of information about that process and the timeline. We are working with Clackamas County actually on the contracting part of this. So the city has put in most of the funding, or the majority of the funding, but also we've received a number of grants, some smaller and some larger. The most significant grant in terms of dollars that we've received is through the Community Development Block Grant Fund, which is federal funding that's actually administered by Clackamas County. So each county administers the CDBG funding. And we were successful in receiving a grant initially of $130,000. And actually, Christina was very instrumental in helping us get that funding. She's helped us with some of our granting, or with all of our granting that we've received. We just got notification recently and just amended our agreement with the county that they had some additional funding become available because of some other projects that weren't going forward, and received an additional $80,000 for a total of $210,000 towards a construction project that's around $640,000. Now that construction amount that I just mentioned doesn't include potential change orders and things like that, and it also does not include the architectural and engineering work that's been done to date, which is some additional funding, and it's part of the whole project total. But so anyway, the CDBG, the Community Development Block Grant Fund, requires, there's some requirements that the administering agency, which again is Clackamas County, actually has to be the contracting agent. So it's our house, it's our project. We did the specifications with our architectural group, which is Architectural Resources. Maya Foti, I think she came and gave a presentation to HRB at one point, did she not? Probably some time ago at this point. At any rate, we did all the specifications ourselves. Then the county has to actually do the bidding and the processing kind of stuff with the contract.
Is that because they're supplying the money, and even
Right.
though that grant that came through the county, the federal grant,
Right.
which equates to about a third?
The federal requirements of distributing that money require the administering agency, which is Clackamas
To
County, in this
oversee it
case,
and manage
to
it.
actually be the
Gotcha.
contract agent.
That's
It's
the
kind
So
of
they
a-
write the checks, but we
Yeah.
do the day-to-day management.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
That's a great way to say that. We are still it's still our project, and we're still
Got
very
it.
much involved. So we went through a process over the last few months of doing some pre-qualification of potential bidders, which means that we eliminated the firms that wouldn't be capable of doing a very historically significant and kind of more of a specialized type of construction, and got only limited it to firms that were deemed through the qualification process of being capable of doing this project, and then out of that group, then we requested bids. We only ended up receiving one bid out of the firms that were pre-qualified, but we determined that it was a qualifying bid, and that it was met all the criteria, and it was well within our budget. So the firm that's doing the construction for us is T.S. Gray out of Tualatin. So they're a local firm, local to the metro area. And again, they've been the contract is in place. They're underway. You'll see a lot more activity kind of as they start to really get things going. They're kind of in just the real early stages so far, and we expect the project to go through. This is pending finding anything significant that we aren't aware of at this time. The project is going to go through about late October or early November. And again, those are all kind of subject to change depending on if there are any findings that we discover or what have you. So that's kind of the in a nutshell, the timeline, the process, et cetera. And that's what I was wanting to kind of let you know about. And I know Christina's going to fill you in on some more of the architectural specifications here. And then I'm just here to answer questions as well about the process and the project in general.
All right, so I have here a site plan of the Ermitinger House, so you can click on your screen if you aren't already on there. And there are, majority of the work being done is in the interior, which of course is not subject to Historic Review Board approval. Because this did go through federal monies, they are required to receive a Section 106 approval letter from SHPO, and that's already been received, and that should be in your packet in your agenda item. So that has already been sent and submitted. So we have already received our Section 106 approval that it meets the Secretary of Interior standard for both inside and out. The three outside modifications are the introduction of a new ADA ramp. And if you know your Ermitinger, this is the John Adams Street, and you remember there's a side porch right here. So we spent a long time working with the Park Service, knowing that one day this might hopefully maybe be transferred over. We want to make sure whatever done here doesn't preclude any long-term negotiations with the Park Service, so we have included them in our longer conversations. We really wanted to refrain from putting the ADA ramp in the front, though the Park Service actually has some new ADA requirements about making sure that ADA access is direct as feasible. And so they actually are hard-pressed to allow kind of side ADA entrances. Though because of the scale and size of this house, it's so small that this is not, taking a large historic bank building and making people go in the far back, that they signed off that they thought an ADA ramp to the side. So this was the main historic volume, and then this is the 1920s addition. You remember? So you have the side porch. So this new ADA ramp goes directly into the side porch, and then there's a new door right here that'll be an ADA accessible door into a new kitchen and bathroom area. So the way ARG has really looked at this, they said, okay, well, if we can contain as much as possible, all of our additions or non-historic or changes into this 1920s edition and really retain the original 1843-44 volume as much as possible. So that's kind of been in the thought process. Is that was a 1920s bathroom. We knew we needed to get an ADA, so that made sense to do all the work on that addition. So that's the first part. On a staff level, I've always historically worked with property owners to do ADA ramps and not process them through the Historic Review Board. The second aspect is right now there's not a full foundation underneath, and the HVAC basically is kind of on dirt in a crawl space. So is some of the main goals of this project to remediate both what we think is some soil that's not compacted that may have contributed to some of the stability issues. The house is going to, originally we thought it was just going to be brought up on stilts and then have the basement excavated for a full basement. Now sounds, talking to T.S. Gray, they actually, you'll notice, they're going to move the house over onto the parking area next to the garage, the fire station. So for a time, the house will be up and moved slightly over, and they'll have free space to dig out a full basement. And then they can put all the HVAC systems in this build-out basement. It's not going to be habitable space, but it'll be extra storage space for the building and all the HVAC. But there will be a new steps down to the basement right here. So we've been working to put this in the most inobtrusive place possible, which is down here. And so I've also, through basement remodel, worked with property owners on adding new ingress and egress stairs to the basement on a staff level.
Is this going to alleviate that instability?
It'll do a lot. I mean, there's some of the reason there's some hydrostatic soil that they think has been pushing on the house, as well as, if you recall, there was a police station admin building that was removed in the early 70s, mid 70s, 80s.
When it was moved,
That built the house that was there.
I'm not sure when that went away. We just know that it was
An amorphous period of
Yeah.
but they're not sure if what was actually filled in that basement. So we could actually have the extent of the historic basement in there, and there could be non-structured fill put in. So they think a lot of that. And then you have the Ermitinger being moved in the 80s and kind of straddles that foundation. So the big goal is to get all of that out, build a brand new
Even the existing foundation.
Yeah,
Take
even the
it all
existing
out,
foundation, take it
start
all
over.
out, pour a brand new foundation, full height foundation, and then have those access stairs on the back end. Then the third aspect is, because they're bringing it up, they're going to be pouring a new foundation. And so the three odd things that I see that are normally staff approvals, and so I'd like concurrence tonight from the board, is the approval of the new foundation, which is going to be exactly the level of what they assumed it would have been looking at photographs before it was moved in its original location, to the inclusion of the concrete stairs in the rear, and then the ADA ramp going out into this deck area, which they will reconstruct the deck.
You need us to make a motion on those three things?
I think what I'm
Or you
looking
just
for
want us to
tonight,
say, yeah, you're cool, do that.
I think what I'm looking for tonight is concurrence that that still is kind of because this is a historically designated building like any others, that those still were on the level of staff level approval and didn't require a historic review board land use application. So if you do want to move forward and do a historic review land use application, I just want this time to get concurrence. So if somebody asks why we did not do it, the reason is really the only three alterations that triggered it were the three that I mentioned. Nothing else being done as part of this project actually is triggering any historic review. So that is kind of my recommendation. I think going through the State Historic Preservation Office and receiving the Section 106 approval, I've had pretty full confidence that the approach they've done is both simultaneously the lightest approach you can have for those three options, and I think I cannot actually conceive of a way to put in stairs or an ADA ramp that would have less impact than what they've proposed. So wholeheartedly on a staff level, I think this is a very reasonable and actually one of the optimum proposals for realizing those
So
requirements.
you just want us to say, yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Does anybody have any problems with that?
Mm-mm.
Yeah,
Not at
that's
all.
cool.
Not at all.
So yeah, I think it's more a concurrence that those three items could stay at a staff level approval, and which is
We concur.
consistent with every other designated
Sure.
property that we usually
So
work
you
on.
need 4 thumbs up, or?
I think this is enough. So I think when people ask,
That
we
sounds
can
cool.
send back to this hearing tonight.
Well, and I read that letter from SHPO. It's like, it's kind of, it's green light, it's fine.
Mhm.
It's like if somebody wants to argue something, it's like,
Yeah, no, I mean, we were extremely fortunate to hire Maya Foti. If you've read the two documents she put together, and just the care and love she has, and the quality, and just her respect for how to treat a territorial aged home, bringing Bill Hawkins in, who's probably one of Oregon's preeminent historian and historical architects on territorial aged homes. I mean, we put together a good powerhouse team to really look at this. And care about it. So I'm just feeling very confident in how we've moved forward, and not seeing really anything else we could really do with those 3 items.
that sounds great.
Good.
Super.
So they're about to start. So soon you'll see the house not only picked up, but slightly moved over to allow
How
that.
far is it going to move?
Actually, yeah,
Was it they
there's
changed?
another update on that. Yeah, they may not, as projects go, the dynamics and things kind of change quickly, but they may just now
Pick it up?
just
Oh,
pick
okay.
it up after all, which is originally what they're going to do. And they talked about moving it basically backwards, but they may not do that now, and that's brand new information that I hadn't even shared with you.
Is
Well,
the
at some
other
point-
400 grand coming from the city?
Can you say that
Out
again?
of the 600 plus thousand, whatever it is, where's the rest of that?
There's again the CDBG funding is 210,000. The city is funding. I think the city's got and again it's not just the construction piece, but we had the architectural
Architecture
and
and
engineering and
And
the soft costs.
CLG grant, which you nicely appointed. So I'll be
Oh, yeah.
working with, what we're going to do for that is we're going to work with the contractors, and we're going to pull out of the whole budget the most historically significant project.
And put that money toward it.
Hmm?
And put the money toward it, right?
Put them toward that. So we're going to have like a little line item, and that's what we're going to turn into the state for the reimbursement, so we don't have to send this full big
But the rest of the
project in.
money's coming from the city's coffers.
Correct. Yeah. Essentially, the city has been putting in from its general fund on an annual basis for the past few years into a dedicated account for this. I'd have to go back and double check the numbers, but so Christina just mentioned some of we've got a SHPO grant that we got for 20,000, National Trust for Historic Preservation for 5,000, the Kinsman Foundation for 5,000,
Kinsman, yeah.
HPLO Preserving Oregon grant for 2,500, and then the recent one, 17,000. So the city has put the balance of the funds in from
Gotcha.
that. Yeah.
So it's coming from a lot of good places.
$500,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Over
I mean,
500. Yeah. Exactly.
the city has really kind of been banking this project.
Yeah.
And, I think the board has kind of been involved since the beginning of that last round where we applied for the Preserving Oregon, for the Most Endangered Places designation. And I have to say that has been was one of the best things to really kickstart this project. So Restore Oregon, I've always said, has kind of been big kudos to them. And I think they're really excited because that was their first year, 2011. And now they get to have a nice box check to show, I think us and the Egyptian Theater in Coos Bay were the 2 projects from 2011 that look like they're going into construction. So they're really excited for us as well, and for us for them, so they can show the power of their program. So.
Scott, thanks for coming.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
I'm going to find our library director.
So are you going to get out your shovel and go help out?
No, some gold painted shovel to dig some of the dirt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No.
We could put these guys, the experts, right here.
Uh-oh.
That's a loose string.
It feels hot right here.
Okay.
Thank you, Scott.
All right, so our next item is, bless you, PC 14-80, the Carnegie Library Process Update and Preliminary Design Advice.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hold on, where we got legislation text, design advice. Yeah, we got that letter. Project
So,
page.
Chair McLaughlin, I'm going to send this quickly over to our library director, but I wanted to invite the new architect team here for the library expansion. I think our goal is to have them meet with you for a couple of months to keep you engaged in kind of a design advice. So they don't have anything to give you today, but I think it was a meet and greet as well as some just non-binding preliminary direction back to them as a historic review board. This will, of course, will go through site plan design review and a concurrent historic review board application
Thanks.
sometime this fall.
Meet and greets usually have treats, though.
Yay.
So-
Oh, we should have brought cookies. Dang.
Didn't bring
I wasn't
donuts or
thinking.
anything. Yeah.
So thank you for allowing us to come. My name's Maureen Cole, and I've been before you guys before, so hopefully you remember. But we just wanted to come back now that we've hired our professional support team and have you meet a couple of the people involved and maybe just get some of your thoughts. We're in the very preliminary stages of design, and just get some of your thoughts about direction as far as historic review. And so what I'd like to introduce Sid Scott of Scott Edwards Architecture, and he's the guy over there with the glasses, and he's our principal architect. And then Charlie Ballman from Shields, Oblitz and Johnson, he's our project manager. We also have a contractor already on board, which we did go through the CMGC process in order to get a contractor on early, because we really thought that that expertise on this project would be really, really helpful to get in early on the design review process. So I'll just let these guys take it away from there then.
Great. Thanks, Mel.
Yay, you bet.
So thanks for having us. And my name is Sid Scott. I'm a principal with Scott Edwards Architecture. And we are in the beginning stages of this project, and we've been out talking to the community and gathering input. And it's always interesting to hear what folks think about the existing building and how you ought to add on to it. And so what we were hoping for is an opportunity just to get some feedback from you about any preliminary thoughts that you have about it.
You had three types. You had three prototype designs that you had sketches or renderings.
Yes, that was from a previous study, and another architectural firm had done those.
Oh, well, did you take any of that feedback from those? Because that was presented to the public, and I was wondering
Yes.
how that came out.
Yeah, I think, well, when we went to the commission, I had asked the question because we started the project and there had been interest in the two-story addition. And I said, is this what you want to do, or you want us to look at ideas? And I think the answer, and I think we got this from the community as well, that's the idea we've seen so far, but we're open to ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And so we really took that as an opportunity to explore, it's in the end, I think it's got to be a balance of what really works great for the library. It's got to be, a library that works incredibly well and can provide as much service as we can to the community, and then being very respectful of the Carnegie.
Mm-hmm.
So what our approach has been to say, well, is a two-story the right option? Is a one-story the right option? What's the right option? We have no answers.
Mm-hmm.
It's really in the study process.
In
right
terms
now.
of functionality and space,
Mhm.
would a two-story option give more functionality and space to the interior of the library than a one-story?
Two-story will actually be less because of we're going to have vertical circulation, stairs, elevator, those kind of things. So for the same amount of square footage, you'd actually get less usable area. And then I think one of the other things with the two-story, and again, we're just starting this, but is that with library on 2 floors, the current library is 2 floors. It's got the basement and then the main floor. And so a 2-story addition to that, we're going to start looking at, how would it program? One of the key things in libraries, particularly in today's world where things are changing so fast, is that you build it very flexible.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things we'll be looking at as a two-story is that as flexible as it would be if it was one story. Two-story is going to have a smaller footprint, which may mean that Mo needs to look at different ways to divide spaces up, in terms of the circulation, staffing. And,
But
those
if
kind
it
of
was a
things.
two-story, it wouldn't be any higher than the one that's already there.
Yeah,
It
the
would.
two-story would be.
So you
'cause-
have a two-story now, but it's really like a story.
Well,
Well,
and a
it's
half.
it's a
halfway in
basement.
the ground.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
It's got a
because it has a
basement.
basement.
Yeah, you can see in the photos. I mean, it is essentially that base is the windows of the basement.
It's like a daylight basement.
Exactly.
And
Not
so,
that much
Hard
daylight,
to see
though.
in those photos.
Yeah, not that much
So-
room down there.
And when we did, there has been some soils testing done, and right along the back, just along the back of the building, and the basalt's about 6 feet below ground, and we believe that's why the basement steps up. It steps up a couple feet, and I think it was following basalt,
The contour. Yeah.
basically. So what if we went two-story, we would probably tie into that existing floor line, and then you're going to want to have some significant height to that first floor, and so the second floor is definitely going to be above the building.
But the other consideration is the preservation of the green space outside.
That's correct. Yeah, and we've heard a lot about keeping the canopy.
Because it is a
The
park.
play area. It is the park. So those are the trade-offs, and those are options that we're going to be looking at.
And do you have any preliminary sketches at all?
We don't have anything yet. That's why we'd like to get just your preliminary thoughts on it. Questions that we would have are things in terms of adding onto that building is symmetry better than non-symmetry? We've got the open space in that park. There is the canopy in the park. And so it's looking at it from a symmetrical or asymmetrical point of view, all the way to does it make sense to what elements would make sense to pick up from the existing building, whether it's pediment, the window patterns, the
brick.
the brick, the materials, or the base and all of those pieces. So those are the kind of things that we're just starting to look at. Does it make sense to make it really, because one of the things from a historical standpoint is making it subordinate to the existing Carnegie.
Right, so it doesn't
well,
look
it's
exactly like
it's like that building's 3,500 square foot basically of a footprint, and if we're adding 15,000 feet or so to it, it's a significant addition.
Well,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you.
Well, I was going to say that the Carnegies that have been added to throughout the United States have all had big, small footprints because, and it always depended too. The size of the library always depended on how much space that they started out with. And in our case, this was the biggest space we had to get this free library. So they've all been, left to the cities to go ahead and change them whatever way they felt that their city was growing.
Right.
And so some of them have done replication of the building. I'm sure you've
Yeah.
looked at all this.
Oh, yeah. Well-
but the ones that are I think the most successful visually are the ones that complement, not replicate. And I think in Oregon City, that's what we like to do in our guidelines, is to complement the historic and not make it look exactly, so we can tell the difference between the historic and the new.
Great.
My question was, when are you hoping to have this done or come before this board? For approval. Is this a year from now? 6 months from now?
Oh, what do we
What's-
have on schedule, Charlie?
Well, the current plan is that we'll take the schematic design, which would be the very next step, that we're in sort of a programming and site utilization massing study right now, but next step would be schematic design. At the conclusion of schematic designs, when we first have something that is usable to look at, that would be the time that we'd go for the land use review.
So
So that's probably this fall.
this
yeah,
fall.
this fall, I'd say.
And are you doing
So,
the engineering?
Charlie-
Oh, you got to speak into the mic.
Speak to the mic, please.
Are you doing the engineering?
Am I doing the engineering?
Yeah.
I'm the project manager.
Well, you're a PE as well, right?
I'm both an architect and an engineer.
Yeah,
But for
so-
25 years, my
Double
practice
dangerous.
is...
So I'm trying to figure out.
I'm really dangerous.
Yeah. So you have a contractor on board.
We do.
Yeah.
So why is there a project manager? Isn't that what the contractor's supposed to do? I'm just trying to figure out your guys' roles. If there's a general, why is there a separate project manager?
Well, you're acting as an owner's rep, is
Yeah,
what-
I'm the owner's representative. I'm your representative.
The owner's rep of the city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're
Yes.
working for the city. So.
Yeah, Maureen can't be the project manager.
Well, that's why I was
Yeah.
trying to figure out who's
Yeah.
hiring you and what your role is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
that's what it is.
Okay, so you're gonna manage the contractor.
In fact, I wrote the contract for the contractor.
Okay,
yes.
so you're gonna manage the contractor and the architect. And,
I'm going to help Mo manage the whole thing.
gotcha.
I'm riding shotgun with Mo.
I was just trying to figure out what your role is.
Great
you know?
question.
Well, I don't know. I don't.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't even know where the money's coming from, or all that stuff. It just I was
John, these
curious.
are really good questions, and this one reason
Not
I
so
really
much.
wanted a project manager is because I've never built a building before either, and we have one shot to make it wonderful.
That's where I was.
And I want to
yeah.
make sure that I have the right people with the right experience, and everybody I've hired has extensive library experience and historic experience.
Yeah,
I
so-
felt like that was
My,
really important.
my practice is entirely project management. I haven't done any design work in
Yeah.
25 years. That makes
So-
me totally
Okay,
dangerous.
so
And
when you
then,
fellas, so when you come back for land use, it's going to be you fellas doing this, right? Both of you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
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 it'll
it'll
be-
primarily
will
be
be-
You.
Scott Edwards.
Mhm.
Well, you might need help. So.
I probably will. Well, I'll mention this.
This will not be an easy task.
So
Yeah.
we
We
have-
also have I'm sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
I just mentioned on our team we have a historic preservationist as well.
Who's that?
HPA out of Denver. They're an architectural firm. They specialize in both library and historical work. So they've done a lot of Carnegie's.
Worked on any of these libraries before.
Yeah.
Oh.
They've done, I think, 8 of the Carnegie
Oh.
additions to the Carnegies.
Good.
Gotcha.
So we teamed up. We've worked together on a number of projects, and so I brought them on board to be that assist. So when the next time that you see us, Dennis Humphreys will be with me, who is our team preservationist.
Okay.
So with 5 minutes left, what I'd like to do is maybe briefly, knowing that this is non-binding comments, but like either what would be like in theory a great win you would feel like, yeah, or a worry. Like I want to make sure that this doesn't happen, or I'd be really ecstatic if we could find a plan that did such and such. Just kind of like, what are your worries and excitement about it?
Yeah, I might add that we've gone around to neighborhood associations, we've had the staff in, we've had a mind-breaking exercise. So we're in the information gathering mode. And we've heard about parking and trees and playgrounds and don't touch the building and do touch the building and please replicate it and please make it different and,
Yeah,
you know,
well,
maybe,
we
so,
can't
but that's what
replicate
we're
it.
trying to get right now. So we'd love to hear any comments and thoughts that you have.
My thought is it's just not going to be an easy ride.
Yeah.
Well, that's a given. But I think that what I would not want to see is a totally separate building. You know, I would want to see something added to the back of it. And to leave enough park to still use it as a park. So that was my thought in the 2-story model. And I do like the glass, because there is so much nature around there to look at and so many historic properties to look at. The glass brings in light. It lets people in there to look out amongst, you know, the scenery. I think it would be a great use of space to have it light and bright up there, because we have so many dark days here in Oregon, and there is, you know, the main building is kind of short on windows that you can see out of all the time. You know, the shades are kind of drawn a lot because of the art. Maybe that will change. I don't know, but
You know, when I say not an easy ride, it's not probably so much us as it is the neighborhood. They're the ones that are really gonna,
they'll pick it apart,
They'll-
whatever.
because there's something across the street from that we had to deal with that was pretty difficult
Yeah.
a few years ago, and this is going to be.
That's the project that Bremick built, is that?
Yeah,
the
that's
church-
the
It was
church.
Church
the
project?
church.
Yeah, and so this one's probably going to be.
They,
I'm just saying the neighborhood and the association. That's going to be
Yeah.
the big crux.
We've met with them, and we're going to continue to do so. And and the opinions vary widely there.
Sure.
From do nothing to, So anyway, we appreciate what you're saying.
I think
And-
we're probably on that, but that's probably where we're going to leave it right now. But I think everybody can say something real quick, and then we can wrap it up.
I've already said so.
John?
I can think of a number of library editions that have gone horribly wrong. But that I have a personal tendency towards transparency in terms of, I think, in terms of the supports libraries program. It doesn't compete as much with the existing structure. So that I don't want to provide any more sort of direction in that, but I personally, I don't want to see a replication. Or who's the one that did the Boston Library? I actually kind of like that edition, but it's falling apart now. But
Well, I'll use the music analogy. I would like to see whatever you do to fit the same tone and I can't get the word tenor as the existing building. I'm a fan of that architecture and turn of the century schools, the old brick schools that were like that. I really like that architecture, and I'd like to see whatever you do fit with that rather than be something else.
All we've got so far is some sort of mass studies on the site, but the very next step is developing the architecture,
The options.
the options.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think that's where we got to reserve and wait and see.
Sure. Well, yeah, you can't comment on something you haven't
Yeah,
seen.
that we don't know what.
Well, we can. But
Feel free.
We'll reserve.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for coming. And
Yeah.
I know you're in the preliminary stage, and there's a lot to do, and lots of PR and lots of design. Good.
Look forward to coming back with some options for you to
No,
take a
that
look
would
at.
be great. Thank you
Yeah,
for your
we'll
time.
leave it
Yeah,
August
thank
10th.
you for taking your
Yeah.
time.
Thanks.
Yeah, we plan on working with them, and they'll come back for multiple design advice as we move forward. So by the time we get to the land use application,
It'll
it
be
will
a
not,
shh,
it'll not be a
When
That's
we
what we're
bring the
looking for.
land use application in, that starts the process with the HRB. Is that-
Will that be before the turn of the new year?
Oh, yeah, that'll be this fall.
This fall. for
Well,
sure.
this will be a busy room that night.
Yeah, well,
We actually, we have a
We better bring
preliminary
donuts that
schedule-
night, then.
We have a preliminary schedule right now that these guys are vetting. But if we
Donuts and
believe our own
Jack
preliminary schedule, we're shooting for an end of March 2016 project completion.
wow. You're going to work in the winter.
That's
Fast.
ambitious.
Yeah.
So we would start construction around March of next year
Sure.
Oh, I
Yeah.
see.
and have about a 12-month.
Yeah.
I thought you said it was going to be.
And the current idea is to keep Mo in the library and then build the addition.
Build
Move
the
the
addition
existing
around me.
library into the addition,
Yep.
finish out
He'll be
the,
outstanding
whatever
in
we're
your
going to
field.
do to the Carnegie Building.
That's
And
ambitious.
then flush
It
the
is,
whole
isn't
thing.
it?
Hopefully there won't be any appeals or anything that'll really throw you off.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Well, yeah, that's always a risk.
Yeah.
it's a
Great.
Yeah.
Can't build that into a schedule.
No, but let's think positive, right?
It's really.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I think we're gonna break, and we'll adjourn at 7. I guess.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
On the agenda tonight.
We do. We have a gentleman, Jay Pierce, who you may recall. He applied for a preservation grant about a year ago on some work at his property on Washington Street, and I asked him to come tonight. And he wanted to come tonight. Generally, we don't start with the year's preservation grant program till either August or September. So I've actually heard from some people that are interested. So I wanted to let the board know I'm ready to move forward to open up for the preservation grant up as early as the August meeting for this year's funds. But we have a requirement that if you've received a grant before in the last 3 years, you have to wait till January. And it's a first come for people who have not received grants before. It can start in the fall. And if you recall, we actually did not have a grant application last year. So I wanted to, Mr. Pierce is going to talk a little bit about his project and looking for general direction from the board if you would like to keep that, continue that recommendation that that people who've received grants before need to wait till January. Or, and we always have that you can't do more than $3,000 in 3 years, but that's every year. Or do you think that because of the lack of kind of response by the public, you be supportive of kind of suspending that rule? Because it's a rule that was created by the board. Because these monies come from our community development department, we are not as hamstrung as when you have more pass-through grants. So this was a policy that the board chose. It was reasonable, but I wanted to bring it back to the board, and I told Mr. Pierce to come tonight to kind of talk a little bit about it. And when he's done talking and with the discussion, I'm looking at staff as general direction if you'd like to keep that.
It's because he's wanting money.
Yes, he wants to come back next month for an additional project.
Gotcha.
Or if you want to suspend that until such time that demand shows that should be reinstated. So I'll send it to Mr. Pierce.
We're working on 1214 Washington Street, the Babcock House down there. And the initial grant, we've been working on it since September of 2012. Came in and redid a lot of interior work. And that's part of what we came to you for, was replacing waterboard and drip rails. We did find some dry rot.
Sorry, a little bit closer to the microphone.
We did find some dry rot when we first came in. So the first grant was granted in, I believe, January of 2013 to replace the waterboard, but we hadn't really started on the exterior of the house other than to notice that there was visible damage there at the waterboard drip rail level. So we replaced all that. Everything was done, but now we're starting on the exterior. And you know, when you remove the old lead paint and really strip the old lady bare, there's things that really present themselves immediately.
It's expensive.
It's a very expensive proposition, and I'm just coming to you to get any relief I can find. Number one, and number two, to apply early for this money, because we're right in the midst of the exterior project right now, and I have.
Christina, he can get as much as $3,000.
Well, right now,
It's been 3 years.
Back when we had more money, we had a limit of $3,000. Now we're down to $5,000 a year, and we've given 5 $1,000 grants when we've used them all. And then in other years, as we've finishing out the fiscal year, if there's money left over and you qualify above the $1,000 50/50, we've let that happen if it's like May or June. But the policy has been to wait until January, unless if you have previously received a grant within the last 3 years.
But what kind of monies are we talking about?
So we have 5 $1,000 grants again this year.
$1,000.
It's $1,000.
Yeah.
And, you know, the reason I question it, because we had not one single grant application last year, fiscal year, there's something to be said. I mean, honestly, either way is fine, but there's something to be said about letting an applicant continue with their phasing, but also at the same time, the policy is nice because it does give deference for new people. So I'm really looking at direction from the board on this.
Anybody have any opinion?
I don't know enough about the program to speak to it.
I think that what kind of flexibility do we have?
You know, it's your board policy. So one option you could say is, because of the recent lack of applications, we're going to suspend that requirement until such time we see it needs to be reinstated. Or upon further look tonight, you'd say, well, no, we still think that is an important policy, and we want to retain that, knowing that we want to give first option. So I think both are fine. I'm just looking for kind of concurrence and direction for the board.
I am of the opinion to waive that, to let him have it. I mean, to come back. There's somebody that's viable, that's ready and willing, and that's my opinion.
I agree, because like you said, last year nobody really came forward and the money didn't get used, and so I would rather see it get used for something like Babcock House, because he's really putting forth a lot of work and effort, and it's really a nice historic representation of the city, and it's, should be helped.
What's the timeline for the applications?
We, well, as of next week, I'll update the grant application and notice it out to both the neighborhoods. And we generally need the full application, which is the 2 bids and the description of what you're doing, turned in about a week and a half before the hearing, in whatever hearing you want to be on.
Is that doable for you?
So he has time. He has enough time to meet the August meeting.
So, notwithstanding your need for the dollars, the issue is that really the principle was that we would not want to encourage new applicants. Mm. If we, on a request basis, grant money out of the $5,000, that reduces the capability of new applicants. And so I'm really concerned about the policy. I'm concerned about the policy itself, not about this project, but what are we trying to encourage by going outside of our current policy and granting money to an individual applicant outside of the application process?
Right. So normally with that policy, you would have to wait till January to apply.
Right.
You're talking about precedents, right?
I'm sure it's a precedent.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's really the policy of the board. So I think the only reason I thought that it might be a reasonable request is because we had 0 applicants last year.
Well,
and
but
how many
that doesn't
applicants?
predict necessarily
Correct,
what's
it
going
does
to
not
happen this year.
predict, absolutely.
And how many applicants have we had this year?
I talked to a lot of people, and a lot of people don't follow through, but I've talked to 1 or 2 other people other than Mr.
And if
Pierce.
we let him have this 1,000,
It would, what you would do, it wouldn't be just for Mr. Pierce. You would say we would be waiving that this year and we would revisit it next year. So it would be not case by case. It would be this year because of the lack of last year. We're waiving that January requirement.
because of last year. And that gives us the flexibility to do it again if we want to.
So next summer you could say we're going back to where we were.
Do we need a concurrence thing?
Yeah, and I think we have people in the audience. If there's anybody else who wanted to make comment for this kind of direction.
So the money that was not spent last year just disappeared?
It goes back into the general fund.
Okay.
It cannot be carried over.
It doesn't disappear.
It's absorbed for other purposes.
It's
we need to
reallocated.
ask
It is
for-
General fund
reallocated.
purposes, yeah.
Do we need to have comments on this, or
I wanted to know if anybody else had any comment, but
I don't know. Does anybody else have a comment?
I can speak in support.
Okay. Well, I guess I would concur. That would be my opinion. I don't know anybody else's. I would say waive it and have them come back. But that's my opinion.
I agree with you.
Do we need to take official action on the waiver of the policy?
let's make it official. But I think Ms. McGriff wanted to say something.
Thanks for hearing.
Well, thank you for allowing me to comment. I'm personally a past grant recipient of the program, and I, have talked to everybody about this until I've been blue in the face, and even handed applications out to people. But why they don't follow through, I don't know. There's a couple of houses within a stone's throw of here that I think I've taken that application over 3 times now to give to them. Said,
I think they want you to bring money too.
well, maybe they want me. I even offered to fill it out for them, but I think that in light of your predicament that nobody else applied, I know that the McLaughlin Memorial Association is very interested in applying again, but we were waiting for the 3-year time frame because we've got a house that, as we rehab the interior, we figured out that the windows are in just a complete mess, and it's something that we would be interested in applying for a different house that we also own up next to the Holmes house. So I would say that knowing the previous owners of the Babcock house and knowing the work that's gone into it over time since I've lived here, I think it's a reasonable request And I've been watching it on a probably every other day basis since I go up and down the hill all the time. But I would support that just as a person who's also applied. And next time you're by, come by and look at my fabulous front door that you guys help me with. So
Remember that.
thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Okay, so if there's no other, if we're on a consensus, I'd say
Consensus or a vote?
Sure, someone can make a consensus direction.
you want a motion?
We're waiving a policy.
We're waiving a policy, so he can come back next month. That would be.
We'll do all agree? Just
I
voice
agree.
vote.
I agree.
I agree. Yeah.
Make a motion just so this formalizes.
That's exactly right.
Okay, somebody want to make a motion? They generally don't make motions.
I'll move. I move that we waive for a 1-year period the requirement
Of the grant.
of the grant application. And what more do I need to say about that?
Revisit it next summer.
Revisit it next year before the grant application process.
Okay, somebody want to second that?
I second.
All in
Okay.
favor? Voice vote.
Aye.
All opposed? All abstain.
Okay.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item is a public hearing. 14-81 HR 14-6304 Caulfield Street. I've got to read an opening statement that I'm required to read. So if you can listen as I speak, and I'll try and make it quick. We'll now commence the public hearing on agenda item HR 14-06 304 Caulfield Street, a request for approval of a removal of an existing one-car garage and construction of a new detached garage and second-floor living space on a designated landmark. The criteria for approval of a land use action are contained in Chapter 17 of the Oregon City Municipal Code. The proposed development must comply with applicable provisions contained in the City of Oregon City Comprehensive Plan. Generally, unless otherwise noted, if a request is found to be consistent with the municipal code, it is considered consistent with the Comprehensive Plan. If you wish to participate in this hearing, including challenges for bias or conflict of interest, you must complete the sign-in form located on the table at the front of the room and deliver it to staff. Please do so immediately. The chair will only recognize those who have submitted complete forms. Testimony will be taken in the following order: applicant, testimony in favor, testimony in opposition, and rebuttal by applicant. When recognized by the chair, please come forward to the podium, give your name, address, and make your statement. All testimony, arguments, and evidence presented regarding this request must be directed toward the applicable criteria or other criteria in the plan or land use regulation which the person believes to apply to the decision. Please address only the applicable criteria for the decision. Please do not repeat testimony. If you wish, you may choose merely to agree with the previous speaker's statements. An issue which may be the basis for an appeal of the Land Use Board of Appeals shall be raised not later than the close of the record at or following the final evidentiary hearing. Such issues shall be raised and accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the Commission and the parties an adequate opportunity to respond to each issue. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision makers and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. Failure of persons to participate in the public hearing either orally or in writing precludes that person's right of appeal to the City Council or LUBA. Written testimony submitted prior to the hearing constitutes participation in the hearing. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues related to their proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the decision maker to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Prior to the conclusion of the initial evidentiary hearing, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional evidence, arguments, or testimony regarding the application. The Commission shall grant such request by continuing the public hearing pursuant to the standards contained in ORS 197.763. Do any of the board members have a conflict of interest or ex parte contact regarding this application?
No.
No.
Who has visited the site?
Not me.
3 of us. Okay. So, go ahead, sit down. We're going to have staff report first. So, hang in there.
Thank you, Chair McLaughlin. I'd like to go quickly. And before I begin, I'd like to add Exhibit A and Exhibit B into the record. Apparently, the applicant did turn in lighting and a side door plan, but not a garage door plan. So I'm going to turn this in, and I'd like this to be under the record, and on a staff level, I'm quite supportive of what was turned in, and so I would recommend approval. And knowing how we generally do it is if through the course of the construction, if they have a different light, they would, for chance want to swap it out, I can use the approved light or the approved door to see if it meets or exceeds the intent
Do
of
you
the
get to see
door.
it?
We do.
Thank you.
So this is a really unique situation where we have a landmark located outside of the two historic districts on a property owner who wants to take an existing one-car garage and shed and replace it with a two-car garage with a new living space for a family member and maybe a long-term age-in-place solution. So what we're looking for is the approval of the removal of the one-car garage and the shed and the construction here of this detached garage and living area. The applicant, I think, has provided a real new construction to the landmark, which I think really meets that balance between compatibility and not faking history. So I really like her approach. She brought in design details from the main bungalow house, which is adorable, and really created a new detached living space and garage I think is very compatible. So I just want to show some general layouts. This is the, sorry, I don't know. Usually this finger pad works for a, sorry. The one thing, like previous properties in Kenema, this area, even though it's pretty flat, it's really close to a geologic hazard area, and our geologic hazard code has kind of a bigger buffer area. So the applicant will be working with our engineering division to see what they need to turn in to meet the geologic hazard codes, and a lot like the previous Kenema applications, this is just the aesthetic review and not the development application, so they are concurrently working on that issue before they move forward for building permits.
What do we call that when they do that? They're doing, I mean, we've done that before where, there's a term.
They're doing concurrent review.
Well, is
Oh.
it concurrent when they're going through that as well as us at the same time? And because we've had that issue. With
Yeah,
some
and
where
so
they
the
come
key
back.
thing is to remind, this is not a development approval. This is the aesthetic review under
Right.
1740 overlay. They will also need to turn in for their building permits and show compliance with the geologic hazard section.
yeah.
And as always, if any, I doubt in this case, but if there's anything in the geologic hazards review that requires a redesign, they will, that is affected on the exterior, they will have to come back to the board. And
Yeah.
Right.
that is just kind of the chance you take. In this situation, this is not a house on the side of a hill, so I'm not too worried. So this is a nice street shot, so you can see the historic house as well as the one-car garage. And one thing I didn't get, and when the applicant comes up, they can talk a little bit about this kind of shed behind the garage, because that also is proposed to be removed, looks like from my plans. This is another example. So this is the this is the replacement location for the two-car garage. And this kind of goes around the street, and you can see that little shed. Here's some 3D renderings. At the back. At this time, I really have pretty traditional conditions of approval for recommendation that the applicant use wood or fiberglass windows and doors, and then a minimum 4-inch reveal smooth composite or wood siding, and of course everything is wrapped and no exposed pressure-treated wood. We saw the exterior door and the lighting. Have not seen the garage doors, but I'm confident on a staff level I can work with them on an appropriate fiberglass or wood door. While I'm looking to the applicant for, in their presentation, a little bit more information on item number 5 to see if we need to provide more information for the finding for the demolition of that outbuilding, because I made staff findings for the one-car garage, and so but not really knowing the history of that outbuilding. If it was moved onto site and was brand new, it's quite new, that's one thing, but if it has an older period, I think we just need to make additional findings to explain why we're supportive of the whole thing being removed.
Do we have any details on the garage doors?
No, that's the one thing we don't have details on. So on a staff level, if the board's supportive, I feel confident I can work with the property owner on picking appropriate garage doors as we move forward through the construction process. The last one I have is always for the file. Prior to demolition, they need to take both context site photos and interior photos for the file of the garage door that's being removed, which is quite easy to do. So at this time, I'm waiting if the board has any questions for me, and if not, I can pass it to the applicant.
I think that shed thing in the back, when I was looking at it today, it's got that big window in it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's a shot we can see it. Yeah, it just,
What is it?
there's something funky with it that,
Yeah, so I'm just going to, they didn't provide information, so I'm going to leave it for the applicant, and then the board can use that information for their findings tonight.
yeah. I mean, it's got no foundation. I think it's kind of been a hodgepodge of, it doesn't look like it has any, but you're looking for some more information on it, some sort of documentation that.
Because right now my findings are for the one-car garage, which we traditionally make one-car garage findings. The existing garage is in medium to poor condition.
Yeah.
It's pretty vernacular. It on its own doesn't significantly contribute to the house, and the infill redevelopment,
Do you think that's got any significance to even warrant this because it's on a post and pier sort
I think
of
more
thing?
of I just didn't have enough information
Gotcha.
to move forward with the
Okay.
finding.
Well, I guess it's something I can ask them. I don't know, does anybody else have any questions for staff? No? Okay, well, then we'll bring the applicant up. If you guys can come up, whoever is representing, and state your name and address.
Let me know if there's a photo you'd like me to use. For this moment, I'll just stay there.
I'm Judy Schaefer, the applicant, and I live at 304 Caulfield Street, Oregon City.
Okay.
And this is my architect, Marcy Marquesh from McMinnville.
What's your address?
My address is 510 Northwest 9th Street, McMinnville, Oregon 97128.
Okay, thank you. Well, go ahead. Tell us what you're wanting to do.
I want to, basically what was stated, I want to tear down the one-car garage I have there, build a double garage, and put an accessory dwelling unit on top of it for my mother to come and live there. And I want to do this because I love my house and my property, and I don't want to leave it. But all the bedrooms in my house are upstairs. It's a 100-and-some-year-old house, and the stairwell is very narrow. And I don't want my mom, who's 80 years old, going up and down those stairs. And she doesn't like those stairs; they're too steep for her.
I don't blame her.
So, and there's absolutely no bedroom or place I can even put a bedroom on the first floor. So that's why I want to do that, and that's why I want to do it. So my mom has a place to live.
Can I ask you a question? Are you going to follow detailing on this as the house? I mean, the drawings don't indicate knee braces or anything. Are you going to detail this?
The intent is to include several details, four to six details from the house.
What are those details? Are you thinking?
I don't think we've completely determined them yet, but they are definitely going to include window trim, door trim, and corner boards with the siding, although this siding is proposed to be fiber cement lap siding rather than the
drop trim.
original drop. But the roof framing is proposed to be roof trusses.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't really talk about adding knee braces and extending the rakes and overhang in order to make room for that. That would be something that would be optional to add.
It's pretty easy. I mean, if you're going to have a rake board, you can come out 18, 20 inches, and I'm just seeing it would be nice to have some knee braces just so it has some hint of the house.
Okay.
Otherwise, it kind of just looks like a
modern addition.
Yeah. Well, the drawings don't. There's not a lot of detail to it.
No, there's not much detail in the drawings. You're right.
I mean, the house it's a cool house. It's can we go to the picture, please?
Oh, yeah.
There it is.
But it's a pretty simple house. It's not one of the real fancy
No, it's not
things.
fancy.
I mean,
Oh no, it's a beautiful house.
But
It's
it
got
has a
great
lot
character.
of detail on it
Yeah.
that a lot of craftsmen don't have.
But I think
The knee braces are a good point, and there certainly are feasible to add to the house. To the addition, I would probably recommend 3 rather than 5, given
Oh, no,
that it's
just
a little
3.
smaller. But
Yeah.
it's got to be subjugated. It's not to be like you're trying to copy it,
No,
but
you want to replicate.
especially, it's going to look different no matter what we do, isn't it? That's
Yeah.
part of the reason I tried to drop the roof pitch a little bit, was just to continue with keeping it smaller massing appearance.
yeah, I think what happens though is, a detached garage is one thing, but a detached garage with an ADU above it gives it a different look.
It's not going to be a full-fledged ADU from a development code point. It's going to be
But it's still the idea of your.
Yes, it's
you're
the
having
concept of it, though.
Yeah, it's basically a 2-story house.
Yes.
With reverse living up top.
I think that the fact that the elevation is lower, though, it takes away from.
Oh, it helps tremendously.
Yeah, it really does. Kind of.
and the face of it does stay behind the face of the house. We're careful
Yeah.
with that. We worked with a survey that the homeowner had done to make sure that was all going to work out with the setbacks and
So
everything too.
right now where the garage is, the face of it, is that going to be the new face of the garage?
Oh
or
no, the new
back-
face is going to be farther back from there.
Further back, because I was trying to figure where, like how much further back from where that garage is.
I think
now.
it's about 7 or 8 feet, but
So a lot
it's
of
been a
digging.
while since I did the drawings, so
Gotcha.
I don't remember off the top of my head. And of course, these are a little bit distorted.
Yeah, and there's a lot of digging.
There is a lot of digging, but the homeowners also had a geotech report done, and it shows
We'll
positive
support it.
information.
Good.
It just requires some a little bit recommending some additional drainage underneath the garage slab.
Okay.
Great.
Anybody have any other questions?
Do you have any idea what that shed building?
Judy would like to tell you about
I'll
the
tell
shed.
you about
Okay.
the shed. I built the shed from scraps and
Leftovers.
saved stuff. You know, the windows are a sliding glass door. The other one's a piece of plexiglass. That's all salvaged materials that I made that shed with, and it's
It kind of looked that way.
yeah, and that's all. I mean, and it's just built on pier blocks, and that's
And it's
all.
going away.
And it's
right?
going away.
Yeah, it's going away, and I built it 7 years ago. It has absolutely no historic value, and probably some of the wood in there is historic from somewhere.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's
And,
what it looks like.
It was, and probably some of that wood, I got that from a boyfriend that helped me build that, but he probably salvaged it from some places, historical homes in Portland, actually, that were torn down in the Northwest, but in Northwest Portland. But yeah, that's where they are.
Judy's also got some photographs that she took
Yeah,
and
they're-
printed up of the shed in case that was needed
Yeah,
for
if
staff.
people need to look at it, but I mean, it's
No?
it's really all it's just a hodgepodge of materials, you know.
And you
it's
use it
been
basically for storage.
what it was originally designed for is I burn wood in my wood stove, and I used to stack my wood outside, and one of my friends said how unsightly that was, and I should build a shed to put it in. So that's how that came, and I kept 2 cords of wood in there for the winter, and then half of it was my garden, garden
Right.
garden table in there, and I have my gardening. So, and there won't be a shed. I'm kind of redoing. I put a gas furnace in this house, and took out the water heater and put in a tankless one, and I used that space to put in a gas furnace. So I do still use the wood stove, but it's not critical as it was.
You happy with your tankless?
Yes, I love it. All the people who tried to talk me out of it 20 years ago, I'm sorry, I listened to them. It's great. I never
They
out
probably
of-
weren't as good 20 years ago.
That's true.
Probably, maybe not, but it's wonderful. I'm going to put one in my mom's too when she has hers.
Well, okay. If there's nothing else, thank you very much.
Yes.
Okay, you don't have any more questions for me?
No.
All right. Christine? Okay.
Is there anybody in opposition?
No.
See
Anybody
anything?
out there in favor? Okay. Then.
All right, so what I'm hearing, it sounds like you can make an additional finding about the non-historic
Yeah, we
outbuilding.
should close this though, right?
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Yeah, so I'm gonna close the public hearing. So now we can talk and yeah.
Yeah. So the three things I heard, the additional finding that the outbuilding is non-historic. Your comments about Exhibit A and B for lighting and door.
That could be a thing.
Yeah, it can be attached to condition approval number 4. Those are acceptable. And then the board needs to decide if they want to include detail items like knee braces in the condition approval, or leave it up to the applicant. With discussion, let me know, and I can
I'd like to
incorporate
see
that.
it included.
Okay.
As a finding or a condition. Sorry. Yeah. I
would. A few.
There should be 3 on the front.
A few.
So I'm hearing the applicant
Knee braces to match.
shall install 3 knee braces
in like
that
form
are
to the house.
proportional
Yep.
and compatible.
Correct.
I'd like to see some Coach-like garage doors.
Hold on. To the
Current garage door doesn't Coach-like. Sorry. Oh, I know.
You
Okay.
can talk about. Thanks.
So that's, I can add that as condition approval number 7. And, or actually, you know what? The condition approval number 5 is additional findings, so we don't need that now since.
Yeah, we don't have the thingamajigs on here. The
So,
findings.
oh.
But yeah, you can cross that one out. if that's-
So I have a new condition approval number 6, but the applicant shall install 3 knee braces that are proportional and compatible to the historic house on the 3 knee braces on the front of the new.
Yeah, I think that's important because, I mean, it looks like the new structure is going to be closer to the house than the existing structure. And so it's going to be...
Yeah.
Compatibility is important.
Compatible and proportional, so
Yeah.
smaller but compatible.
Right,
Yep.
proportional. They don't have to be as big as the ones on the house.
So I'm hearing something else about
Garage doors?
garage doors relating to condition approval number 4.
Okay, let's just say appropriate.
Well, right now I have the condition that says the applicant look for simple bungalow-style doors and lighting that are compatible with the main house, but don't compete with the landmark.
Modern glass.
Some of them are.
And we've generally required that the garage door shall be fiberglass or wood. So
They're
metal
gonna be automatic,
garage doors
right?
are not allowed. as far
Automatic
as-
garage doors?
And
No, but the 2 allowed material choices are wood or fiberglass.
Oh, right.
the applicant obviously knows very much about windows and what type will be going in this, so that's a non-issue.
Or fiberglass.
Yeah.
That's already in the condition.
Yep. Sometimes it's on there and some applicants just don't seem to recognize it. Just want to make sure.
3A. Okay, well, so that's what I'm seeing as the additions to the conditions of approval. Additional finding about the outbuilding not being historic. New condition of approval number 6 about the knee brace, and addition to condition of approval number 4 that Exhibit A and B are acceptable, and reiteration that garage door should be compatible with the main house, but not be with landmark and be of bungalow style.
Yes. Would someone like to make a motion on that?
On what?
What she just said. Move to make a motion.
Well, I move we approve. What's the number?
Christina, never mind.
HR 1406.
I move we approve HR 1406 with the new conditions added in tonight.
As amended.
Okay, is there someone who wants to second it?
I'll second.
Okay, can we call for a vote?
Jonathan Stone.
Yes.
Cindy Toll.
Aye.
Bob Seward.
Aye.
Chair McLaughlin.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
There you go. Yeah.
You're on the move.
Start digging.
Well, not quite, but
Well, you can start out there with a pig.
You're going to have a place to live here real soon.
I've been waiting.
Hey, do we have anything next month?
yes, we'll have grant applications, and I think the Carnegie Library will be back.
They'll be
We may
back
not-
next month?
I think
Really,
they are.
that soon?
Yeah. I don't know if we have any, we may not have any work session items, so I'll let you know.
Maybe it could just be a 7 o'clock gig? Okay.
Maybe nice.
All right, so we can close this?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, everybody go home.
Meeting adjourned.
Right. And Cindy and John, I'll send you an email tomorrow on the.
All right. On the photography.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Christina.
Yes.
I was the fastest board in the West, and people don't.